Hearing this, Lucas understood. Sure enough, someone was causing trouble behind the scenes. He just didn't expect it to be Thomas. Thomas actually went to such lengths to curry favor with Nolan. Thinking carefully, using public opinion and underhanded tactics is indeed Thomas' style. Lucas was mentally prepared and could still remain calm for the time being. Elena beside him was not so calm. Elena raised her eyebrows and said angrily, "Who on earth is this person? How dare he collude with Nolan to do such a thing?" Lucas comforted Elena. "Madam, it's just beginning. Let's listen some more." Elena also understood this and suppressed her anger, patiently continuing to listen to the conversation in the next room. Thomas was still saying, "I did this all for you. I hope you can defeat Leo and become the heir of the Chin family." Nolan had been silent all the time, smiling as he listened to Thomas. Only then did he speak up and say, "With just such petty tricks of yours, it's not enough to let me take control of the group, is it?" Seeing that Nolan had reacted, Thomas showed a happy expression. "Of course it's not enough. I know that the infighting in your business is very complicated, but I've done what I can. Can't you see my intentions?" Nolan turned his head, with a teasing look in his long and amorous eyes. He said, "I can't see. You have to say it out." Thomas gave Nolan a coquettish look and said, "You're so annoying. I'm shy." The two people next door simultaneously showed expressions as if they had eaten shit. Lucas thought to himself that Thomas was really shameless. In order to get close to Nolan, he dumped Benjamin and did such a brazen thing. He vaguely felt that there was more to it. Thomas did these things for other reasons. Could it be that he wanted to take revenge on him? Lucas was stunned. Can't be. Is Thomas so narrow-minded? And he even involved their personal grudges in the company. Lucas pursed his lips to restrain his anger. After hearing Thomas' words, Nolan rested his arm on the back of the sofa, looking as if he was hugging Thomas. Thomas became even more shy, with a rosy blush on his cheeks. Nolan said, "I've said it. It's not enough. There are thousands of people who are nice to me. Why do you think you can stand out?" The blush on Thomas' face faded a little. He cleared his throat and said, "It's so hard to deal with young Master Chin." Nolan said, "Isn't it boring if it's too easy to get?" Thomas smiled with pursed lips. Indeed, he was a bit proud. "Since I've invited you out, I've naturally prepared a generous gift for you. I have another way to deal with Leo, but before that, shouldn't you give me a little reward?" The two were flirting in the room. Lucas was getting a bit impatient watching. He could tell that Nolan wasn't interested in Thomas. Otherwise, he wouldn't have invited them to watch the show. But he didn't know why Nolan was wasting time being false with Thomas. Just then, the door of their private room suddenly opened, and Leo appeared at the door. Elena shouted happily, "Leo!" Lucas let out a sigh of relief. Leo nodded to his mother and walked to Lucas' side. He lowered his head and said to him, "Don't think that just because you informed me, I won't be angry." Lucas smiled guiltily and said, "It was an emergency." At that time, Nolan was urging him to go, but he insisted on driving by himself. Nolan couldn't persuade him, so he sent the location and told him to follow. So Lucas was on the phone with Leo while driving. Leo rushed over immediately. Lucas clasped his hands together in front of Leo and pleaded timidly, "Mr. Leo, don't be angry. It's just this once." Leo lowered his eyes and reached out to touch Lucas' hair. Elena stared wide-eyed at what was happening in front of her. The atmosphere between these two was different from before. Previously, Secretary Lucas clearly showed awe towards Leo, but now one was acting coquettishly and the other was indulging. There was no trace of the superior-subordinate relationship. To distract Leo, Lucas pulled him to the window between the two rooms, pointed at the two people in the next room and said, "There's a good show. Look." Leo turned his head and stared intently at Nolan through the wall. At this time, Nolan and Thomas had a tussle, and finally Thomas told his plan. It's impossible to stop Shearway. Their R&D department will always absorb new blood. Instead, we might as well go with the flow and place our people in it. Nolan raised his eyebrows and asked, "Our people?" Thomas said with a smile. "Those who can stir up trouble in Shearway's R&D department and steal Shearway's intelligence. Who else could they be but our people?" It meant that they were going to place commercial spies during the recruitment period of Shearway's R&D department. Lucas and Elena gasped in surprise. "I didn't expect this innocent-looking guy to be so scheming." Elena set her mind out since her son was here. "Let's go out and teach him a lesson." Leo ignored Thomas and stared at Nolan through the one-way glass. Suddenly, he asked his mother, "When did he start focusing on scientific research?" Elena was stunned for a moment before realizing that he, in Leo's words, referred to Nolan. She recalled, he should have made that decision when he was doing his post-doctoral research. Both Elena and Leo knew that Nolan chose to pursue further studies during the same period when Leo joined Shearway. Nolan had been a student since childhood. He entered university at the age of 16 and then got a PhD. But he followed Alexander's advice and joined the company after obtaining his doctorate. But after Leo graduated, he suddenly decided to go abroad for post-doctoral studies. After gilding himself in major research institutes abroad, he came back as a complete technical elite. In some cases, he could even be called a scientist, gradually moving away from the path of an entrepreneur. Mother and son fell silent at the same thought. Lucas didn't know what they were thinking. He instinctively sensed that Leo was in a bad mood. He reached out and touched Leo's arm, calling out, "Mr. Leo." Leo looked into Lucas's dark eyes and saw the worry in them. He comforted him instead, saying, "It's okay." He calmly turned his head and continued to watch Nolan, saying, "Let's see what he's going to do." After Thomas finished his plan, he continued to take credit in front of Nolan. "In the long run, you'll have all the information about Shearway in your hands, and Leo won't be your match." Nolan smiled playfully after hearing his words and said, "Do you think doing business is like playing house?" Thomas's smile faded a bit. Nolan continued, "Do you think you can bring down Leo just by coming up with a few strategies? You underestimate him too much." He showed a cold and heartless expression. "Moreover, I hate those who engage in intrigues in business the most." Thomas completely lost his smile, frowned, and asked, "What do you mean?" Nolan said, "Everything has a cause and an effect. Your father spoiled you so much and raised you into such a character. He must also have problems." Thomas laughed again. "What are you talking about, Mr. Nolan? You really love to joke." Nolan said, "Let's not talk about other things. Just say where the money came from when you squandered abroad and bought a large number of paintings. After you returned to the country, instead of focusing on design, you started a business of reselling artworks. Did your father support you behind the scenes?" He smiled, still looking amiable and even a bit gentle. "Who gave you the confidence and capital to be so arrogant and domineering? It must be your father. Then where did your father's money come from? Let me think. Did he accept bribes during enrollment? Did he accept earnest money from others during the campus expansion? Did he give others special treatment when approving projects?" Thomas was stunned by the questions. It took him a long time to say, "What are you talking about? Don't slander." Nolan leaned back on the sofa casually. "I'm just talking casually," with a big smile on his face. "Whether you did it or not, only God knows." Thomas got a bit angry and said, "If you don't want to listen to me, that's fine. What's the point of dragging my father into this? He always appeared gentle and weak on the surface and disguised himself well. No one had ever said he was arrogant and domineering before. What Nolan said today made him extremely ashamed and angry." Thomas sneered, "I came with good intentions. If you don't appreciate it, that's fine. But you even turned the tables on me. People like you deserve to be suppressed by your younger brother." Nolan remained calm after hearing such words and said, "I'm just teaching you that before you try to scheme against others, First check if there are any weaknesses in yourself. Otherwise, you'll be the first to perish. As for my younger brother, Nolan smiled amiably. How could I let you harm my family? The smile on his face changed from kind to sinister. His long and slender eyes stared at Thomas, and his gaze could even be said to be terrifying. Who do you think you are? How dare you have ideas about Shirway? Don't you even look at your own face? You look so stupid, thinking you're extremely powerful. In fact, you're just an ignorant brat. Thomas had never been scolded like this before. He was both angry and confused. At the same time, he realized that Nolan didn't want to go against Leo at all. He was even protecting Leo. The three people next door heard their conversation and fell silent at the same time. Lucas probably understood what Nolan was thinking. Nolan did have the intention of making a statement when he invited Lucas and Elena. He hopes to start with the people around Leo and subtly convey his intention of reconciliation in a gentle way. He doesn't dare to approach Leo directly, nor does he dare to act too abruptly. He's afraid they won't believe him and think he's up to something, so he's taking this roundabout approach. Moreover, Lucas estimates that he's also concerned about Alexander and the Fu family. By seemingly obeying the chairman on the surface but secretly calling them out to listen to his conversation with Thomas, he's telling them several ways to deal with Thomas. Nolan isn't convenient to take action himself. As for whether to accept the goodwill he's expressing, Leo is already here. It depends on Leo. Lucas looks at Leo, who is standing by the window, expressionless, and it's unclear what he's thinking. Lucas knows that the president has a deep-seated mind and doesn't like to express his thoughts, so he can only get closer and silently pass his warmth to Leo. Just then, something unexpected happened in the next room, and another person burst in. You're really having an affair. The person rushed in from the door, pointing at Thomas and shouting. Lucas was stunned to see this scene. Why is Benjamin here? Benjamin is very angry. He got rebuffed by Lucas and didn't dare to offend Leo, so he had to give up. At the same time, he's also been keeping an eye on Thomas to find evidence of his affair. If Thomas is having an affair, he has a justifiable reason, and he should be able to vent his anger. After some investigation during this period, he has a vague suspicion about Thomas's affair partner but isn't sure. Today, he happened to see Thomas going out to meet someone, so he followed and indeed caught them in a tryst. He knew it was Nolan. Thomas's had ulterior motives when he arranged to send the painting in the first place. Benjamin pointed at Thomas and said, "You're being too excessive." After all, Benjamin is a teacher. Although he's good at making a fuss, he can't utter harsh words. Thomas's was already in a bad mood, and seeing this clown suddenly appear made him even more annoyed. He looked at Benjamin and said, "We've already broken up. What right do you have to come here and accuse me?" Benjamin then pointed at Nolan and said, "You were already having an affair with him before we broke up." Nolan watched the drama from the side and distanced himself. "It has nothing to do with me. I don't even know him." Hearing Nolan say this, Thomas thought of the several humiliations he had suffered today, and his face turned red and then pale. Benjamin didn't care about that at all. "How can it have nothing to do with you? You've long had dealings with each other. I know it all." Thomas was very impatient. He felt disgusted at the sight of Benjamin. Just thinking that he had slept with such an incompetent man for a year made him extremely annoyed. He habitually smiled, but this time his smile was distorted and vicious. "So what if we have dealings? Why don't you take a look at yourself in the mirror? You look ordinary and your ability is just so. No matter how many resources are given to you, you're just like mud that can't be plastered on the wall. What makes you think I should stay with you?" Back then, Thomas just thought Benjamin was quite outstanding among the young teachers and had a boyfriend. Out of boredom, he snatched him over to have some fun. Only after he got him did he find that Benjamin was all form and no content. In Thomas's eyes, staying with Benjamin for such a long time was already a condescension. Benjamin even had the nerve to question him. He was simply self-unaware. Hearing what Thomas said, Benjamin got even angrier and retorted, "Do you think you're any better? You knew I had a boyfriend but still shamelessly chased after me. You like being the other woman and then cheat on me. As soon as you see a new man, you stick to him. Do you think you're a pot helmet? Hearing this analogy, Nolan, who was watching the show on the side, couldn't hold back his laughter anymore and said, "Stop it. I'm not the stove." Benjamin was also angry with Nolan and said, "Don't laugh. I know everything you've done." Nolan raised his eyebrows and said, "What have we done? I don't even know." "How do you know?" Benjamin didn't want to play word games with him. He took out his phone, opened the chat history, and began to read. "You went to the art exhibition together and looked very intimate." Nolan looked at Benjamin curiously. Obviously, someone had told him all this through the phone. After reading a few sentences, Benjamin began to run out of words. In their chat history, apart from a few sentences about Thomas's infidelity, most of it was Lucas showing off his love. He searched for a long time but couldn't find many useful parts. At this time, Nolan stood up and took the phone from Benjamin's hand. "What are you looking at? You've been looking for so long. I wonder what kind of shady things it is." Nolan glanced roughly at the phone screen, immediately froze, and then a playful expression appeared on his face. At the same time, Lucas in another room almost jumped up. He was originally enjoying watching Benjamin and Thomas fight like dogs biting each other. How could it suddenly fast forward to Nolan looking at Benjamin's phone? He knew he had sent some inappropriate words to Benjamin, but that was just to deliberately anger Benjamin. He never thought it would be seen by a third person. Lucas was both ashamed and anxious. He wanted to rush out of the room and go next door to snatch that hateful phone. Leo noticed his strangeness and turned to ask, "What's wrong?" At this time, the three people in the room simultaneously heard Nolan read, "Mr. Leo is so good to me. He accompanies me whenever he has time. Mr. Leo's house is so big. I'm always troubled about which room to stay in every time. Last time I was sick, Mr. Leo was extremely worried. He and his family are very kind to me. We're getting engaged soon. From now on, he's not my boyfriend but my fiancé." Nolan knew that Lucas could hear their conversation next door, but he didn't know that Leo had also come. Seeing the messages sent by Lucas before, his playful nature arose. He wanted to tease Lucas and asked Benjamin with a smile, "Why does my sister-in-law have contact with you?" Lucas couldn't stand it anymore. He rushed out of the room and headed straight for the next door. Leo took big steps and followed him with a strange look on his face. Elena looked confused. Today's events were a bit too unbelievable for her. At first, Nolan called her here to watch the show with Lucas, and they witnessed a series of vicious actions by the White Lotus girl. Then Leo came too. Nolan had a confrontation with the White Lotus girl, which seemed to be a gesture of lowering his stance to make peace with her. Suddenly, there appeared a strange man who got entangled with the White Lotus girl. Elena couldn't understand what they were saying, but she could guess the general idea from the conversation. Just when she thought these disgusting private matters didn't need to be argued in front of her, Lucas got involved. The words read by Nolan were said by Lucas, right? Why is there suddenly an engagement? How come she, as a mother, didn't know that Lucas was engaged to her son? Even Elena, who was used to seeing all kinds of things in the entertainment industry, thought the situation was too dramatic at this time. She calmed herself down and walked out of the room with them. Lucas burst into the next room and said with a red face, "Mr. Nolan, stop reading." Just as Nolan was about to tease him, he saw Leo following behind him. The smile on his face instantly froze. Then Elena also walked in. For a moment, there were 6 people in the private room, and each person had a different expression. The only thing they had in common was that no one said a word. Some were confused, some had complex expressions, and some were calm. Only Lucas was so ashamed that he wished he could dig a hole and bury himself. It's okay that Nolan saw it, but why did he read out the chat history? Lucas stepped forward, snatched the phone from Nolan's hand, and quickly deleted all those records with his head down. Seeing his actions, Benjamin quickly spoke up. "Stop, there are many important messages in it." Lucas didn't care about him. If it weren't for so many people watching, he would have thrown the phone out directly. Only then did the others come to their senses. As soon as Nolan saw Leo, he stopped smiling and stood silently aside. Thomas also looked very ugly when he saw so many people coming. Benjamin was extremely cowardly when he saw Leo. He took the phone back from Lucas and was thinking about slipping away. Leo had his hands in his pockets, didn't look at the others, and had a mysterious look on his face. Only Elena was the oldest. Although she was the most confused one present, she thought she should take on the responsibility of controlling the situation. First, she looked at the two outsiders. These two people kept talking about some private matters that made no sense, which was really annoying. Especially that innocent-looking girl who even wanted to harm Leo and Shirway, which was unforgivable. MS, Elena said to Thomas, I don't know who you are. Since you're against Shirway, you should be able to imagine the consequences. Elena vaguely knew that this innocent-looking girl had a very powerful father, but Nolan had given them an idea just now, so she wasn't afraid that they couldn't deal with her. Actually, Thomas didn't know that Elena was Leo's mother, but he had seen this face on TV and could infer the stakes. As soon as this lady spoke, Thomas understood that everyone had heard what he and Nolan had said in this room just now. He wanted to say something but was interrupted by Elena. No need to say more. No matter what you say, it can't change your stance. She said in a cold tone, you're a junior. I'm giving you face by not losing my temper on the spot. Why don't you leave quickly? Thomas looked at the people present and knew that the situation was hopeless. His face turned pale. He looked at Lucas resentfully, and the jealousy in his heart was about to overflow from his throat. Lucas stood among the Chin family members without any sense of disharmony and was completely integrated. Leo intentionally or unintentionally blocked in front of him with a posture full of possession and protection. Looking at Benjamin, who was wretched and down and out even at this moment, his eyes still wandered towards Lucas. Thomas was full of envy and hatred but had no way out. He bit his lips and turned away. Then Elena looked at Benjamin and said, what are you still staying for? Benjamin immediately clenched his phone tightly and slunk out of the room. So the people left in the private room were all family members if Lucas counted. Elena originally wanted Nolan to clarify things, but Nolan lost the smile on his face after seeing Leo. Presumably, the two brothers needed some time to digest the current situation. So Ms. Elena brought up another thing she cared more about. She looked at Leo and asked, are you and Lucas going to get engaged? While Elena was talking to Thomas, Lucas tried his best to reduce his presence. He wished he could slip away behind Thomas and Benjamin. But since Leo was standing beside him, he didn't dare to move. So he kept shrugging his shoulders, shrinking and shrinking, hoping to turn himself into a ball. But Elena didn't let him off and asked the question that made him want to die. Lucas finally couldn't stand it and raised his hand to cover his face. Even moving to another planet couldn't relieve his embarrassment. What would the three people from the Chin family think of him in their hearts? Especially the president. Lucas wasn't sure if Leo would laugh at him or be angry with him. Leo glanced at Lucas out of the corner of his eye. From the chat history on Benjamin's phone and thinking about how Lucas had grabbed his hand to take pictures before, he immediately guessed what was going on. He looked calm and replied to his mother's question, we've mentioned future things in private. It's normal for a couple to talk about getting engaged when they're in a good relationship, right? Hearing this, Lucas lowered his head even more. Elena was confused. Why was what you talked about in private in someone else's chat history? Leo said, I know all about this. Then he looked at Lucas and casually said, it's just showing off to others. It's not a big deal. Elena reluctantly accepted Leo's explanation, but she was still very shocked in her heart. They had even started talking about marriage in private. Ms. Elena was shocked again. She hadn't even accepted that her son had a boyfriend yet. How could he be getting a male wife so soon? Elena rubbed her forehead with a pained expression on her face. At this time, Nolan spoke up. He said, it's my fault. I should have respected your privacy. He cleared his throat and seemed calm on the surface. I saw the words Mr. Leo in the chat history and blurted them out subconsciously. Lucas looked at him resentfully. Stop talking. The more you say, the worse it gets. However, Lucas wasn't the only one feeling embarrassed here. Nolan also didn't expect Leo to show up suddenly. Just thinking that Leo had witnessed his confrontation with Thomas from start to finish, Nolan cursed in his heart. He clearly wanted to keep it from Leo and plan things out slowly. As soon as Nolan spoke, Leo fell silent. The two brothers stood in the same room, but the gap between them was deeper than the Mariana Trench. Just the matter of Thomas couldn't make Leo let down his guard. Nolan suddenly felt it was meaningless. He originally wanted to arrange things slowly and ease the relationship with Leo. Now that it was exposed, there was no need to hide it anymore. He looked at Leo and calmly stated his next plan. I have a junior brother who is quite good at technology. Currently, he's married and living abroad. I can find a way to get him back to the country. Do you think you'd be willing to use him? Nolan's junior brother should be quite capable. The fact that he's married abroad isn't a problem. However, since this person is connected to Nolan, if taken in, there's no guarantee that he won't turn against them in the future. There's a big hidden danger. Nolan said, think it over. Give me a definite answer when you've made up your mind. Then he turned to Elena and smiled at his stepmother. I'll leave first. Everyone was preoccupied and didn't stop him. When Nolan reached the door, he couldn't help but turn around and look at Leo, saying, are you really that affectionate in private? Do you really feed Lucas with your own hands? It's really hard to believe. Because the Leo in that chat history was so different from his usual image, it really bothered him. Now, even the president has achieved the embarrassing feat. Lucas thought despairingly that Leo still hadn't forgiven Nolan, which was partly due to Nolan's penchant for stirring up trouble. Wasn't he a cold and high-achieving student in childhood? Why has he changed so much as he grew up? Leo looked at Nolan menacingly. Nolan knew when to stop and strode towards the door. His figure was still as elegant as ever. Only 3 people were left in the private room. Elena was in a complicated mood. In the early years, she was kind to Nolan. She sincerely hoped to get along well with her stepson, but not only did she fail to do so, but she also ignored the feelings of her biological son. After so many years, the relationships among everyone can't go back to the way they were. But this time she saw Nolan's sincerity in making peace. She looked at Leo and wanted to try to persuade her son. However, Leo stopped his mother and said, don't say more. I understand. Understanding is one thing, but being able to act on it is another. Nolan also said that he could consider it, so he didn't need to give an answer in a hurry. Elena knew that Leo was very determined. No one could influence his decision until he figured it out on his own. Wait, maybe there is someone who can. Elena looked at Lucas. At this time, Lucas had a flushed face and was standing listlessly beside Leo. Although his expression was awkward, he was obediently leaning on Leo in a dependent posture and didn't move an inch. Elena sighed silently in her heart. Sure enough, he is head over heels in love. Elena was unwilling in her heart, but she couldn't do the thing of breaking them up. Staying any longer would only make her feel annoyed. She said, if there's nothing else, I'll leave too. Before leaving MS, Elena still didn't forget Thomas and said, that innocent-looking schemer? Leo said, I'll make arrangements and get rid of him once and for all. Only then was Elena relieved. Lucas whispered goodbye to her and she waved her hand and left as the 4th person. So finally there were only Lucas and Leo left. Lucas steeled himself. Anyway, it was a doomed situation. It would be better to admit his mistake actively and maybe he could get a more lenient treatment. He said to Leo in a voice as soft as a mosquito, Mr. Leo, as you said, I just wanted to show off. I didn't mean anything else. I'm very sorry for causing you trouble. The original contract between him and Leo was only up to the level of being a couple. It didn't say anything about getting engaged. The title of fiancé was purely Lucas's one-sided addition. Just now in front of Elena, Leo helped him smooth things over, which really relieved him. Leo didn't give any evaluation. He just said, if there's such a thing next time, discuss it with me in advance. Otherwise, even I'll be confused when suddenly getting engaged. Yes, Mr. Leo. Lucas was so touched that he almost cried. The president was really magnanimous. When getting off work, Lucas was suddenly taken out by Nolan and he hadn't had dinner yet. Leo was in the same situation and the 2 of them went to a restaurant together for a meal. Throughout the whole process, Leo didn't mention the series of things that happened tonight again, which made Lucas feel relaxed. After the meal, Lucas was a little worried and hesitated to ask Leo, Mr. Leo, about Mr. Nolan. Leo said, thanks to you, I don't have the mind to care about him at all now. My mind is full of words like engagement, fiancé, and sister-in-law. He turned around, rushed directly to his car, quickly jumped into the driver's seat, and drove the car away. Leo looked at his speeding back and twitched the corner of his mouth. Fortunately, when going to work the next day, Leo was completely normal as if nothing had happened the previous day. This is the good thing about the president. When it's time to separate public and private affairs, he will never bring his emotions to work, which relieved Lucas. Regarding Thomas, Leo must be dealing with it. Lucas could completely rest assured. He had a hunch that he would never see Thomas again. Farewell, White Lotus. I hope you get your just deserts. After solving the problem with Thomas, Shira could try to recruit scientific researchers again. However, Lucas inexplicably had a hunch that no matter how Shira looked for people, the person recommended by Nolan was the one who truly met their requirements. Conversely, it was precisely because that person was suitable that Nolan recommended him. But whether to accept him or not still depends on Leo. Lucas knew that Leo needed time to weigh these situations and was not in a hurry. Anyway, the R&D department was now in a stable state and could produce some results first. As long as Leo wasn't unhappy because of Nolan's matter. Lucas carefully observed the president and found that there was nothing wrong with his mood. Then he felt relieved. Maybe it was really thanks to him. He played the role of a comedian at the last moment, diverting Leo's attention and weakening the impact brought by Nolan's overtures. Lucas secretly thought that as long as it could make the president happy, it didn't matter if he was embarrassed. He would get used to being embarrassed after a few more times. As for the rift between the Chin family brothers, since it had lasted for so many years, a few more days didn't matter. Leo had plenty of time to think it through. Life and work returned to calm again. Seeing that the National Day was approaching, several days of rest were adjusted before and after to make up a 7-day holiday. Lucas took annual leave during the Spring Festival, so he had no more leave by the National Day. He only had a 7-day holiday and didn't plan to go back to his hometown. When the president's office arranged the holiday duty schedule, they put him on it. Leo asked him, with such a long holiday, haven't you thought about where to go and have fun? Lucas said, there will be crowds everywhere. Besides, I've been so tired from work these days. I just want to lie at home and have a good sleep. Leo stared at him and said, do you mean I've been oppressing you usually? Lucas coughed and said, I didn't say that. Leo just asked, and Lucas didn't take it to heart. Finally, the last day before the holiday arrived. Everyone's hearts had already flown away and they had no intention of working at all. It was so hard to wait until the time. The employees cheered and left the company one after another. Lucas was stopped by Leo before he left. Happy holiday, Mr. Leo, Lucas said to the president cheerfully. Leo leaned against the desk and stared at Lucas strangely, saying, don't you have anything to ask me? Lucas thought for a few seconds, his face turned pale, and he asked carefully, is there any work left unfinished? Do I have to work overtime today? Leo's face darkened a bit and said, why don't you ask me what I'm going to do these 7 days? Lucas touched his nose, thinking that he had no reason to care what the boss was going to do, but still cooperatively asked, then, Mr. Leo, do you have any arrangements for the holiday? Leo didn't answer but confirmed with Lucas again, you'll be at home during the holiday? Lucas nodded and said, I should be at home most of the time. Maybe I'll go out for a class reunion or take a stroll somewhere in the middle. He looked at Leo cautiously and asked, Mr. Leo, is there really something wrong? If there was really something very urgent to deal with, it was okay for him to stay. Lucas reminded the president overtime paid during the National Day is 3 times the normal salary. Leo said, I didn't ask you to work overtime. He waved his hand and said, it's okay. Go. Lucas thanked the president as if he had received a great favor and left happily. After Lucas left the company, he didn't go home immediately but went to the supermarket and bought some snacks and beer and put them in the trunk. Then he went to his favorite restaurant to pack a dinner and took it home as a treat for himself. He ate his meal at home while looking at the computer, took a nice bath, and then lay in bed and continued to play with his phone. Actually, there were still some client relationships to maintain during the long holiday, but Lucas had already taken care of them in the afternoon, deliberately leaving time for rest. It's so great to waste time meaninglessly. He wasn't satisfied after playing with his phone for a while. He picked up the Mr. Leo doll on the cabinet, put it beside him, patted the doll's head and said, see you in 7 days, Mr. Leo. Now I'll let your shadow clone slack off with me. Lucas got more and more excited as he looked at his phone and was about to get up to turn on the computer when the doorbell rang. Lucas was surprised. Who could it be at this time? He walked to the door and checked the surveillance. To his surprise, he found it was Leo. Lucas quickly opened the door. The president he had just said goodbye to a few hours ago was standing outside, staring straight at him. Lucas said in surprise, Mr. Leo, why are you here? Leo had changed his clothes. He was in casual wear without a tie. There was still little expression on his face, but he looked relaxed. He said, I'm here on vacation. Lucas, ? What did on vacation mean? Why did he come to his home on vacation? Leo continued, can't I come to my fiance's home? Besides, I'm here to check on my doll to see if you've stuck needles in it. Lucas. These jokes will never end, right? He could tell that the president was just bored and came to have fun with him. Lucas moved his lips and whispered, working overtime during the National Day holiday should be paid triple. Leo heard what Lucas said and replied, "We're about to get engaged. Why are you still talking about salary? All right, you're powerful. You keep bringing up embarrassing things." That day, Leo helped him smooth things over in front of Elena and Nolan. Lucas thought the president was magnanimous, but now he realized that wasn't the case at all. The president's revenge was like a gentle stream, always brought up from time to time, making him so embarrassed that he wanted to dig a hole in the ground and hide. Leo lifted his chin and said, "Aren't you going to invite me in?" Only then did Lucas reluctantly step aside. Leo entered the rental house with ease and made the same comment as last time. "Your place is really small." Lucas thought to himself, "If you think it's small, then don't come." But he didn't dare to say so out loud. Instead, he could only ask, "Mr. Leo, what would you like to drink?" When he walked over to pour water, he noticed a bag in Leo's hand. Taking a closer look, he saw that it was filled with clothes. Lucas was shocked. The president even prepared change of clothes. He really came here for a vacation. Lucas was both surprised and a bit resentful at the same time. Having to spend the holiday with his boss, he was the most miserable employee in the world. As soon as Leo entered the house, he headed straight for the bedroom. Only then did Lucas remember something and quickly stepped forward to stop him. "Wait!" But it was too late. Leo stood at the bedroom door, raising his eyebrows as he looked at the messy bed and the doll lying on it. It was obvious that someone had slept in the bed. The sheets were wrinkled, and the doll was placed innocently on one side, looking as if something had just been done to it. Lucas was speechless. Leo asked, "What were you doing right before I came?" Lucas said hopelessly, "I was just lying in bed playing with my phone." Leo said, "How can playing with the phone give off a feeling of—" He paused to choose his words, then said, "A feeling of a crime scene." He pointed at the Mr. Leo doll on the bed and said, "And that? Why do you need to abuse it while playing with the phone?" Lucas defended himself. "I didn't abuse it. I was just bored and felt it was a bit lonely, so I put it beside me." Leo looked at him and said, "The real person is here. It's not lonely anymore, so you don't need it." Lucas was a bit annoyed and ashamed. This kind of conversation was so childish. But Leo stepped forward, picked up the doll, and carefully examined it to see if there were any pinholes on the doll or if there was any talisman paper pasted on its back. Lucas was really fed up with him, being so petty in this place. Seeing that there was nothing wrong with the doll, Leo put it back on the cabinet, walked back to the living room, and said again, "It's really too small. You can reach the end in just a few steps." Lucas was too lazy to respond to his complaints. While drinking the water poured by Lucas, Leo said, "You do your own thing." Lucas said, "How is that possible? Since you're here, of course I have to accompany you." The corner of Leo's mouth involuntarily curved up a few degrees. Lucas carried out the snacks and beer he bought. The two of them nestled on the living room sofa and watched videos on Lucas' small laptop. Midway, Leo picked up a potato chip and held it to Lucas's mouth. Lucas said in surprise, "I can eat by myself." Leo said expressionlessly, "You told others yourself that I would feed you. I have to cooperate a bit." Enough is enough. After spending half the evening, Lucas had accepted the fact that Leo was going to stay overnight at his place. Resignedly, he said to Leo, "There's only one bathroom here, Mr. Leo. You go take a shower first." Leo didn't stand on ceremony either. He stood up and walked towards the bathroom. Seeing Leo go to take a shower, Lucas was in a quandary looking at the one-room, one-hall rental apartment. Last time he had a fever and was in a daze, so he slept in the same bed as Leo. He couldn't do that again today, could he? Lucas made the bed neatly, then took out the quilt from the cabinet and prepared to put it on the sofa. Leo came out and asked, "What are you doing?" Lucas was startled. He washed so fast. He turned around and saw Leo standing behind him in just a bathrobe. The bathrobe was loosely tied around the waist with just a belt. The collar was wide open. The smooth skin and the undulating muscle texture were exposed to the air. coupled with the dripping hair and the lazy expression. The president's appearance was so out of place in Lucas' small rental apartment. If he were holding a glass of red wine in his hand, Leo's current image would be more suitable for standing in front of the large floor-to-ceiling windows of a top-tier hotel, sipping wine and overlooking the city's night view. Lucas' face involuntarily flushed, and he said, "Mr. Leo, are you going to sleep like this?" Leo didn't think there was anything wrong and said, "What's the matter? I'll change into pajamas later. I'm always like this at home." When Lucas was at the Yunting mansion before, he lived alone in the guest room and didn't know the situation in the master bedroom. He turned his face away and continued to put the quilt on the sofa, saying, "My place can't compare to your mansion. Please bear with it and put on your clothes properly." Leo looked at Lucas' red ears and didn't say a word. Lucas said, "There's no extra room. You can sleep in the bed tonight, and I'll sleep on the sofa." Leo still didn't say anything. He just disliked that there were too many rooms in the Yunting mansion. Since Lucas lived in the guest room, he had no reason to go to him, so he came to find Lucas. Leo looked around. Although this house was small, it wasn't without its advantages. Lucas didn't know what Leo was thinking and didn't think much about it. After making the sofa bed, he brought a hair dryer to Leo and told him not to sleep with wet hair. Leo said, "Once you blew my hair." Lucas remembered. At that time, he went on a business trip to City N with Leo. He was so scared of Leo that he tried every means to please the president. Lucas grinned and said, "Mr. Leo, if you're not willing to pay 3 times the salary, you won't get such good treatment." He stuffed the hair dryer into Leo's hand and said, "Help yourself." After saying that, Lucas took his pajamas and walked into the bathroom. He surprisingly found that the bathroom was very clean. Obviously, Leo had tidied it up. In this aspect, Leo didn't seem like a domineering president at all. He could cook, tidy up, and take care of others. Even so, Lucas felt a little awkward when he thought that Leo had just washed his body here. That firm chest kept flashing in his mind. It was the first time he had been so close to someone. This person is still his own boss. Lucas put aside those random thoughts and turned on the shower to take a bath. When he finished washing and walked out of the bathroom, he found that Leo had dried his hair and changed into pajamas. Meanwhile, the quilt on the sofa had also disappeared. Lucas stared with wide eyes and asked, "Where's the quilt?" Leo said, "I put it away." He pointed at the bed. "Isn't there a bed?" Lucas paused for a moment and compromised a step. 2 people should have 2 quilts. It was October and there was still a bit of chill at night. Leo said again, "1 was enough last time." Just as Lucas was about to say that the situation was different now and that 2 grown men didn't have to squeeze together, Leo sat on the bed, patted the sheet beside him and said, "Anyway, we're going to get engaged." "Lucas, you win." The 2 of them lay down. Lucas couldn't fall asleep at all. The person beside him was too prominent, making him feel a little hot. If he felt this way, not to mention Leo. Lucas asked, "Mr. Leo, is your misophobia better?" He could sleep in the same bed with others without any problem now. Leo had a ready-made excuse. "I have to adapt bit by bit. It's just right to start adapting with you." "All right." Lucas accepted this statement, but still couldn't fall asleep. He simply turned around and lay on his side facing Leo. Leo turned his head and their eyes met. In the thick night, their bright eyes were glistening. There was a faint smile on Lucas's lips, gentle and beautiful. Leo's heart skipped a beat when he heard Lucas say, "It seems a bit of a waste to just go to sleep. How about we do something?" Hearing this, Leo tensed up. Then, Lucas said again, "Let's have a chat." Leo's heart sank a little. Lucas continued, "Let's talk about the R&D department. What are you going to do about Mr. Nolan?" Leo's body and heart both grew cold. He said indifferently, "Don't mention him at this time." Lucas just remembered the last time they were lying in this bed and Leo talked about his past with Nolan. Now that the situation was repeating itself, maybe Leo would be willing to untangle his knot in his heart. Lucas didn't say a word. Leo realized that his tone was a bit harsh. After a while, he said, I'm not planning to do anything. The long-standing estrangement couldn't be changed overnight. It's better to let nature take its course and leave everything to time. Lucas could understand, but what about the R&D department? He asked, will you accept the person recommended by Mr. Nolan? Accepting that person meant choosing to believe, trusting that Nolan was on their side. Leo fell into a long silence. Lucas reached out his hand and groped under the quilt. He found the back of Leo's hand and patted it gently. He couldn't do much, only bring some small comforts. Don't want to talk about Nolan, Leo said. Lucas thought he was still repelling his elder brother. He nodded in the dim light and said, then let's not talk about it. He's so annoying, Leo commented. Since he started to be unrestrained, he has become more and more unreliable. Lucas deeply agreed. Would an ordinary person choose to read out others' chat records when seeing them? Wait. Lucas found that the topic was going in the wrong direction. It's okay to read them out, but still go to the parties involved to confirm the situation. It's really outrageous. Lucas completely agreed with what Leo said. But could they stop talking about that matter? Just mentioning it made him itch all over, and he wished he could dig a hole and hide in it. Seeing the person in front of him curl up, Leo leaned over and whispered in his ear. So, every time you came to my place, were you really struggling with which room to stay in? Were those words you said what you subconsciously hoped for? That you hoped I'd feed you? He's crazy. Leo was doing it on purpose. He deliberately brought up the most sensitive topic and kept talking about that day all night just to embarrass him and see his ashamed look. Lucas covered his face, and his ears turned red again. Leo didn't let him off and continued, don't be shy. We're going to get engaged. Leo repeated what he'd heard Nolan read that day. From now on, I'm not your boyfriend, but your fiancé. Lucas exploded. His face and ears were completely red. In a panic, he reached out his hand and moved it towards Leo's face, trying to cover his mouth to stop him from talking. But Leo preempted him and grabbed his wrist. Lucas still tried to struggle, but Leo flipped over and pinned him down. The two of them were on top of each other. Their bodies were tightly pressed together, with their hands and feet touching. They could clearly feel where the shoulders and the waist were. The two sets of body lines were intertwined. Lucas was panicking. His wrist was firmly held, and his legs were pressed down. He couldn't move at all. Leo could feel that the person beneath him was stiff at first, and then softened like a puddle of water after a while. Lucas murmured, Mr. Leo, let me go. But Leo didn't want to let go. Not only did he not let go, but he also slowly lowered his head, and the two of them gradually got closer. With his powerful aura, strong build, overwhelming strength, and well-defined muscles, Lucas realized for the first time that the person so close to him at this moment was not just his boss. He was also a man. This awakening of awareness made Lucas feel as if he were soaking in hot water, scaldingly hot. Leo noticed that Lucas' body temperature was gradually rising, and he couldn't help but feel excited and even more eager to get closer to him. The already short distance between the two further shortened. In the dimness, the sound of breathing was right next to the ear, so scorching hot. Lucas was a bit at a loss and softly called out, Mr. Leo. Leo restrained himself for a moment, released the hand that was pressing on Lucas, and lay beside his face, hoarsely saying, Let you go. It was also to let himself go. The tall figure retreated. Lucas felt the space above him empty, and the air filled in, bringing a chill. He was in a daze when Leo pulled over the quilt and covered him with it. Lucas grabbed the quilt, and his whole body was red. Fortunately, it was very dark, so Leo couldn't see this scene. If he saw the secretary blushing like a peach blossom, his self-control would completely collapse. The room fell silent, and the silence spread. Lucas hid under the quilt, not knowing what to do. What on earth was going on? It seemed that he and the president had done something, but also seemed to have done nothing. Even a fool could feel the ambiguous atmosphere just now. Lucas felt a bit regretful. Indeed, two grown men shouldn't sleep in the same bed. especially considering that he was gay. It was okay for the president, but why didn't he know to avoid suspicion? While he was thinking in a mess, Leo leaned over again, which startled him, and he stiffened and didn't dare to move. Leo just stroked his head and said in a low voice, "Go to sleep. I'll take you out to play tomorrow." Lucas thought to himself that he wasn't a child, but he didn't dare to say a word and just lay there quietly. He couldn't figure it out, so he simply stopped thinking. He closed his eyes like an ostrich and actually fell asleep quickly. Leo was a bit speechless seeing him fall asleep so quickly. Was he the only one who couldn't calm down? Didn't Lucas have the slightest bit of emotional fluctuation? Leo wanted to have a good puff of a cigarette. He got up and sat against the bed, looking down at Lucas's sleeping face and reaching out to touch the long eyelashes in front of him. Tonight would be another sleepless night for him. When Lucas opened his eyes, it was already bright. The light slipped through the curtains and shone on him. The first thing he did after waking up was to curl his toes. There had been too many embarrassing things recently, which was not good for his physical and mental health. When he realized his posture, he curled his toes even harder. Just like last time, he clung to Leo like an octopus and was held in Leo's arms. Why was it like this again? He wanted to cry but had no tears. Staring at the chest in front of him, he began to think about what to do. Just then, because the two of them were so close, Lucas clearly felt something strange in the place where they were in contact. One could never get used to the feeling of embarrassment. He kept chanting in his heart that the one holding him was the president, his boss. What bad intentions could the boss have? But the surging hormones enveloped him and couldn't be ignored at all. Sensing that the person in his arms had a rising body temperature again, Leo opened his eyes and looked at Lucas. Thinking that Leo had just woken up, Lucas immediately greeted, "Good morning, Mr. Leo." Then he couldn't face Leo anymore. He quickly withdrew from Leo's arms and rushed into the bathroom in a flash. Seeing this, Leo lazily rubbed the space between his eyebrows, leaned against the bed and reminisced for a while. He didn't get up until everything calmed down. Lucas stayed in the bathroom for a long time, hiding inside and refusing to come out. Leo made the bed and went to the kitchen to see if there were any ingredients for breakfast. Lucas obviously couldn't cook. There were no ingredients in the kitchen. Leo felt that he had miscalculated. He should have brought some things over yesterday. He returned to the bathroom door. There was no sound of water. He said to the person inside, "Let's go out for breakfast. When will you be done?" As soon as Leo finished speaking, the sound of rushing water came out. Lucas said in a very loud voice, "I'll go out in 500 years. Do you think you're a monkey?" Lucas refused to come out no matter what. Leo leaned against the wall by the bathroom door, stroking his chin and recalling Lucas' reaction in his arms just now. He couldn't help but curl his lips. He could understand Lucas' shyness. His face was a little red too. He cleared his throat and said, "If you don't come out, I'll break in." After a while, Lucas poked his head out of the bathroom, looked at Leo by the door and said, "You're so annoying, Mr. Leo." He didn't even give him time to recover. Leo glanced at him askance. "Not bad, little secretary. Now you even dare to say you hate him directly." But Leo wasn't angry. Instead, looking at his aggrieved little expression, he thought it was very cute. Leo reached out and pulled Lucas out of the bathroom, saying, "It's my turn. Go and change your clothes. Let's go out for breakfast. It's really inconvenient to have only one bathroom." Lucas didn't know why Leo kept complaining about his rental apartment but still refused to leave. The two of them went downstairs together to have breakfast. On the morning of National Day, national flags were hanging everywhere. It was a joyous occasion. The air was filled with the joy and leisure of the holiday. Both pedestrians and vehicles slowed down. Lucas asked, "Leo, what would you like to eat, Mr. Leo?" Leo replied, "Just go to the shop you usually go to." Hearing this, Lucas gave a malicious smile. When Leo stood in front of the breakfast shop, his face turned black. He finally understood why Lucas had smiled. Lucas said openly, "This is the shop I often come to. The rice noodles and steamed buns inside are so delicious. Come in, Mr. Leo." Leo looked at the shabby signboard of the small shop, then at the random plastic chairs. He couldn't bear to look at the oil on the table. His obsessive-compulsive disorder flared up. He felt extremely uncomfortable and turned around to leave. Lucas followed behind him and said coolly, "Don't you want to experience life, Mr. Leo? Didn't you read a lot of CEO novels before? There are many such plots in them, right?" He recalled and said the CEO accompanies the protagonist to eat at a roadside stall. At first, he dislikes it, but after taking a bite, he is amazed. From then on, he falls in love with spicy hot pot. Leo turned around and looked at him like he was a fool. In the end, the two of them went to a Cantonese restaurant for morning tea. Lucas looked at the table full of various delicate steamed dumplings and said, "Mr. Leo, you can't always eat these. You should try to accept the food of our working people and experience life." He looked at Leo sincerely. "Have you ever eaten hot pot? Have you ever eaten barbecue? Have you ever eaten skewers? If you haven't eaten anything, how can you meet your true love like the CEO in the novel?" Leo said, "That's enough." Lucas pouted. From yesterday to today, he hadn't seen the CEO show any mercy to him. Lucas was really timid and didn't dare to make too many jokes. He thought that the CEO was really more suitable for Miss Universe. The two of them had morning tea until almost noon, which also solved their lunch. Seeing that half of the first day of the holiday had passed, Leo said to Lucas, "I'll take you to have some fun." The CEO had said the same thing last night. Lucas asked, "Where to?" Leo said, "To a holiday resort." Lucas frowned. "There will be a lot of people during the holiday. It will probably be very crowded." Leo said, "I'll book the whole place." Lucas, "I know you're rich, but it's too far away. There might be a traffic jam on the highway. I'm too lazy to go." Leo thought for a while and said, "Then let's go to the movies." Lucas, "We watched videos for so long last night. I don't want to watch anymore. Go horse racing, go karting, play tennis, or find a private room to drink. I don't want to do any of them." Leo looked at Lucas. "Then what do you want to do?" Lucas said, "I just want to sleep at home." He had experienced all these things during social engagements on ordinary days. During the holiday, he just wanted to be a couch potato. Don't even think about making him move around. Leo walked forward expressionlessly and said, "Let's go back. I'll sleep with you." Lucas, "Don't say such words that are easy to misunderstand." Lucas caught up with Leo and asked curiously, "Mr. Leo, don't you have any other arrangements? For example, spending time with his family." Although the relationship within the Chin family was delicate, it was reasonable for him to go home and visit the chairman during the National Day holiday. Leo said no. He didn't tell Lucas that he had declined all social engagements and activities in order to spend time with his junior secretary. As for Alexander, Leo straightforwardly told the chairman that he wanted to have a romantic time with Lucas and wouldn't go home. Seeing that Leo really headed towards his home, Lucas said, "Mr. Leo, are you still going to stay at my place tonight?" Leo turned around, raised his eyebrows and asked, "You don't want me to?" Lucas thought to himself, "How dare I object?" He coughed and said with a blushing face, "At least we should have one quill each. Otherwise, it's not good for physical and mental health." Leo had a strange expression on his face. Remembering that sweet yet torturous night, he agreed. Finally, they didn't go home immediately but drove to the supermarket. Naturally, they didn't go to an ordinary supermarket but a membership-only one. There were many expensive, rare, and fresh ingredients inside. He asked Lucas what he wanted to eat while making selections. Leo had a good knowledge of both vegetables and meats. He knew what kind would taste good when cooked, once again showing his virtuous side. Lucas followed him. Rarely did he carry things for Leo as he did at work. Instead, he enjoyed the pleasure of being taken care of by the president. The two strolled leisurely in the supermarket. Because of their good looks, they often caught people's eyes. Lucas didn't care. Instead, he felt a sense of satisfaction. Lying at home alone and resting was indeed pleasant. But spending time slowly with someone else, bickering from time to time, and feeling as if his heart was floating in the air was equally enjoyable. Leo shed the seriousness and strictness of work and wore a casual-style coat. The whole person became softer and extremely easy to communicate with. He wouldn't get angry even if you complained a few words. It's very relaxing to get along with him. The two bought a large pile of ingredients and planned to cook a big meal in the evening. Then they left the supermarket and went to the shopping mall next to it. They shopped all the way. If Lucas hadn't stopped him, Leo would have wanted to buy a set of projection equipment on the spot and install it in Lucas' small rental house. "I don't need it. What's the use of installing it?" Lucas said. "Let's talk about it when I buy my own house in the future." Leo said, "The earlier you buy, the earlier you can enjoy it." Lucas didn't know whether he was referring to buying the projection or buying a house. He just said, "Mr. Leo, since you dislike my small house so much, why don't you go back to Yunting Mansion? He said without any burden, I can also pack up and go over to accompany you. Who doesn't want to live in a big house? He also wanted to curl up in the audiovisual room to watch videos, soak in the bathtub, and even have barbecue in the glass house on the top floor. But if Leo didn't invite him, he wouldn't mention it either. What's so good about a big house compared to a small bed? Leo coughed and said, didn't you let me experience life? Stay here for a few more days. Stay for a few more days? Lucas saw that Leo wanted to stay in his small house and began to think that it would be better to go to the holiday resort. It's not a big deal otherwise. The main thing is that the two have to sleep in the same bed at night, which is really embarrassing. Most of the day passed in a leisurely way. By the time they drove home, it was almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Lucas was in charge of driving and parking while Leo took out the ingredients from the trunk. The two talked and laughed as they went upstairs, entered the house together, and went straight to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Lucas wanted to give Leo a hand, but Leo didn't let him and drove him out. Lucas sat in the living room, staring blankly at Leo's busy back in the distance. Since when has the president become so down-to-earth? Clearly, there is still the arrogance of the rich engraved in his bones. He either dislikes things for being too small or too dirty, but he is also willing to lower his status to take care of him and accompany him. Lucas knew that other presidents would have personal assistants who would take care of everything in great detail. The assistants were very close to the president's private lives without a sense of boundaries. But would other CEOs cook for their secretaries? Leo was bustling around with his sleeves rolled up. Surprisingly, he could even cook stir-fries. His tall and imposing figure was imbued with the smell of fireworks. It was both discordant and contradictory, yet it made him step down from his lofty position and become more charming with a sense of intimacy. Lucas began to recall when he had gotten so close to the CEO in private. It seemed to start from the signing of that contract. The two gradually got in touch. At the beginning, they were full of uneasiness and concerns. They gradually dispelled each other's defenses and developed into such a relaxed relationship as they had now. Lucas never thought that he would get so close to his boss. He was so entranced by Leo's figure in the kitchen that suddenly the doorbell rang unexpectedly. He quickly got up and walked towards the door. Who could it be at this time? When Lucas checked the surveillance, he was so frightened that his soul almost left his body. He returned to the kitchen at the fastest speed, grabbed Leo, and said nervously in a low voice, "Hide quickly." Leo didn't understand what had happened and asked, "What's wrong?" He was still cooking the fish. Lucas told him, "My parents are here." But where could such a big person hide? Lucas came up with an idea: under the bed. Leo looked at him and conveyed with his eyes that he would be dead if he really did that. Lucas didn't really dare to let the CEO crawl under the bed or climb over the wall. But his parents were right outside the door. How could he explain if they saw there was another man in his room? Since no one opened the door for a long time, Camila started shouting loudly, "Tong tong. Are you at home? It's Mom. Mom has come to see you." Lucas saw that there was no time left and looked at Leo pleadingly. "Mr. Leo, could you please hide for a moment? I'll send my parents away first and then you can leave quickly." Leo still didn't move. This house was so small that no matter where one hid, it would be very conspicuous. At this time, the knocking on the door stopped, but Lucas' phone started to ring. The Yi family's parents, seeing that no one answered the door, instead dialed the phone. Leo said calmly, "Go and open the door. Don't worry, leave it to me." Lucas' heart instantly settled down. Looking at Leo, there was gratitude in his eyes. Since Leo said so, he must have a way. After all, the president can do anything. Lucas walked to the door and opened it. Camila and Miles were standing outside. Seeing their son, they showed delighted expressions but said with their mouths, "Why did it take you so long to open the door? Were you asleep?" Lucas asked, "Mom and Dad, why did you come?" Camila complained, "You don't go home and still won't let us come to see you. What, are you hiding some secret from us?" As she was speaking, she looked inside. Unexpectedly, she really saw a strange man behind Lucas. Camila was stunned. Miles had already noticed Leo. He curiously sized him up for a long time and then asked, "Who is this?" Leo cleared his throat, greeted and introduced himself, "Mr. Lucas, Mrs. Yi, nice to meet you for the first time. I'm Lucas' boyfriend. My name is Leo." Everyone was petrified. "Is this what you meant by 'don't worry'?" As soon as these words were spoken, Camila and Miles didn't care about Lucas anymore and just stared at Leo. Camila's gaze was scrutinizing, while Miles was full of novelty. Lucas was angry but had no choice. Since the words had been spoken, it was too late for him to explain. He could only secretly glare at Leo and said to his parents, "Come in first." Miles was still carrying things in his hand. Lucas quickly took them and said, "Why did you bring so many things? You didn't even inform me." Camila withdrew her gaze from Leo and looked at Lucas. She said crossly, "Didn't we ask you? You said you didn't have to work during the festival and wouldn't go home. Can't we miss our son if our son doesn't miss us?" Lucas was bombarded with complaints and didn't dare to say a word. Leo took the things from his hand. Seeing this, Miles continued his wife's words in a good, tempered manner. "Your mother and I discussed it and decided to come and see you on the spur of the moment. There were no tickets during the peak travel season yesterday, so we took the train today." Camila continued, "Let's see if you've done anything bad while being out here alone." It seemed that he hadn't done anything bad, but unexpectedly he had a boyfriend. Camila looked at Leo and said in a gentler tone than when speaking to Lucas, "You're Leo, right? Our tautong takes my surname. My surname is Yi and his father's surname is Kong." Leo was a bit stunned and vaguely remembered that Lucas had mentioned that his family was in harmony. Looking at Miles again, although he was old, he still had an elegant bearing and a handsome face. He must have been even more good looking when he was young. Finally, Leo knew why Lucas was so good looking. Leo sensibly changed his address, "Ms. Yi, Mr. Kong." Normally, he should have called them aunt and uncle, but Leo's temperament was so calm and his mature charm was so overwhelming that it would seem a bit awkward if such elder-like titles came out of Leo's mouth. Camila began to wonder about Leo's occupation. At this time, Lucas said, "Mom and Dad, please sit down and have a rest first." He turned to Leo and said, "Put the things down first and pour water for the elders." Seeing Lucas so ordering him around, Leo raised his eyebrows and did as he was told. Lucas directed Leo to put the things brought from their hometown against the wall. Blocking his parents' view with his body, he lowered his voice and gritted his teeth, saying, "You said you could handle it. Is this your solution?" Leo was very calm. "This is the best way. Otherwise, should I say I'm your boss?" Saying he was a boss or a friend would be even more difficult to explain and might arouse the suspicions of his parents. It was more reasonable to just go along with it and say he was the boyfriend. Lucas thought it made sense. They had pretended to be a couple in front of the Chin family for so long, and it was the same in front of his own parents. Leo added, "You said I was your fiancé in front of others, and I only said I'm your boyfriend. I've already suffered a loss." He didn't understand where the loss was. Since things had come to this, Lucas had no choice but to say, then find an opportunity to leave quickly. Leo glanced at him, thinking that the little secretary was getting bolder and even had the courage to drive him away. Leo replied with an While the two young men were whispering to each other, Camila and Miles were also communicating with each other through eye contact. Last year, Lucas once posted an official announcement about him and Benjamin on his WeChat moments. He blocked his parents at that time, but Camila learned about this through a relative's child. When Lucas went home for the spring festival, Camila asked her son if he was in a relationship. Lucas said no, so they speculated that there might be something wrong with their son's relationship. Their family has always been democratic and free. If Lucas said he was single, then he was single. Camila didn't ask any more questions. Who would have thought that this sudden visit would catch a strange man at home? Fortunately, that man was very generous. Although they were surprised, they could still accept it. Camila looked at Leo and whispered to Miles, "He looks good." The one in the group photo on Lucas's WeChat moments before, although he looked okay, was not as handsome as this one. Moreover, his face looked fake and his eyes always seemed insincere. This one looks much better now. He is handsome and decent, but there is a bit of arrogance between his eyebrows. I don't know if he is good to Lucas. Miles knew that his wife would definitely judge people by their appearance at first sight, so he said, "We also need to look at his character." Of course. Camila winked at Miles. Leo put the things away and poured water for the two elders. Camila took the water and was about to ask a few questions when Miles said, "What's that smell? It seems something is burning." Leo looked calm and said, "I'm cooking fish. Please sit down for a while. I'll go to the kitchen to have a look." After saying that, he returned to the kitchen. Now he couldn't leave again. He could tell that Leo didn't intend to leave from the beginning. Seeing that Leo could cook, the Yi family's parents were stunned again. They had a better impression of this boyfriend who looked like an elite. Leo was busy in the kitchen and Lucas was accompanying his parents. Camila asked, "Aren't you going to help?" Lucas said, "Mom, you know my cooking. If I go, I'll just cause trouble. It's not appropriate for the elders to interfere when the younger generation is cooking." So Camila asked about Lucas's recent situation. Lucas said everything was fine. Lucas always reported good news but not bad news. He didn't tell his family anything about being kidnapped and hospitalized before. He always said he was doing well on the phone. The more he behaves like this, the more worried Camila and Miles are that he might force himself while being away from home alone. So they came to visit him during the National Day holiday. Now seeing Lucas with a rosy complexion, not looking like someone who has suffered, and having his boyfriend cook for him, they felt much relieved. Everything else is fine, but the house is a bit small, Miles said, looking around. Lucas said, the rent here is extremely high. It's enough for me to live alone. Camila shook her head and said, you still need to buy a house. It's not big enough for 2 people. Camila obviously included Leo in the picture. Lucas couldn't explain, so he just kept silent. The family chatted for a while longer. Then Leo brought the dishes out from the kitchen and Lucas got up to help. Lucas was like a young master at home and hadn't done much work. At this time, Mr. and Mrs. Yu were quite surprised to see him helping Leo deftly. After serving all the dishes, Leo said, you eat slowly. I'll leave first. There's no reason to leave right after cooking. Mr. and Mrs. Yu quickly stopped him and Leo sat down half reluctantly. Lucas thought to himself, stop pretending. You just want to stay here. During the meal, the 2 elders found that the dishes Leo cooked were so delicious and they became even more curious about Leo. Camila asked a lot of questions like doing a background check. Leo said he worked in the same company as Lucas, introduced his family situation but didn't reveal that he was the company's president. It was basically an adaptation based on the facts. Once Leo gets serious, he gives an impression of being steady and reliable, and his conversation is also full of connotations. Even when chatting during the meal, his good family upbringing and knowledge can't be hidden. Basically, it was Camila and Leo chatting while Miles listened on the side with a thoughtful look on his face. Lucas gave up. Let him act. Anyway, the president seems to be enjoying it. After the meal, Camila was very satisfied with Leo. Leo asked about their itinerary clearly and said he would show them around City S. Lucas immediately became alert and said, no need. I'll take them around. Leo said calmly, leave it to me. I'll make the arrangements. Lucas thought to himself, if I leave it to you, I don't know what tricks you'll come up with. Seeing that Lucas was reluctant, Leo reached out and stroked his hair, saying, come with us. Don't worry. Only then did Lucas stop talking. Camila and Miles were extremely shocked to see their son acting as docile as a kitten in front of Leo. In front of his parents, Leo didn't push it too far. He then asked where they would stay that night and if they needed a hotel to be arranged. After being politely declined, he didn't mind. After a while, Leo politely said that he had to leave. This time, the Yi couple didn't stop him. Camila asked her son to bring over a box of the local specialties they had brought and let Leo take it back. Leo quickly declined, but Camila stuffed the things into his hands and said, take it. We didn't know you were here, so we didn't bring anything else. Since you can cook, take these back and make soup with them. They're naturally raised and very nourishing. Camila turned to Lucas and said, take a box to your boss. Doesn't he have thin hair? The soup can promote blood circulation and hair growth. Camila even added, saying to Leo, your colleagues with Tong Tong. You should know his boss. Nowadays, people are under a lot of pressure and hair loss is normal. For some reason, both of them were somewhat used to this situation. Leo was used to Lucas gossiping about him behind his back. Lucas was used to being caught by Leo when saying bad things or doing bad deeds. Leo gave Lucas a deep look. Lucas lowered his head and touched his nose, not looking at the president. Finally, Leo left with the things. As soon as he left, Camila leaned in front of Lucas and said, why didn't you tell mom that you're in a relationship? Lucas thought to himself that it was because he wasn't in a relationship. But at this point, it was hard to explain, so he had to keep up the act. He said, it's just a relationship. There's nothing to talk about. Camila glared at him and said, I think Leo is a nice guy. You can have a long-term relationship with him. He's just a bit older, but being mature means he can take care of you. Lucas was speechless. He said, what are you talking about? You're thinking too far ahead. Miles had been stroking his chin all the time. At this moment, he asked, is he very rich? Lucas said vaguely, it's okay. He didn't want to dwell on this matter. He started asking about the situation in his hometown. The 3-member family hadn't seen each other for half a year, and it took them half a day to chat about daily life. In the evening, how to arrange his parents became a problem. For the first time, Lucas thought this house was really too small. Originally, it was said that Camila and Miles would sleep in the bedroom and he would make do on the sofa in the living room. But after Camila took a look around the bedroom, she immediately said she wanted to stay outside. Did Leo stay here last night? Camila stared at Lucas. As soon as she entered the bedroom, she saw a man's shirt folded on the bedside. Obviously, it wasn't Lucas' size. There were 2 sets of toiletries in the bathroom and they were still wet, clearly just used in the morning. Lucas stammered and couldn't refute, standing there blushing. It's normal for a couple to be intimate. But after all, it was her own son. Afraid that he might be deceived, Camila said, have you thought it through? Letting someone stay overnight. Lucas blushed deeply. What on earth had he done to deserve discussing such a topic with his mother here? What made him even more annoyed was that nothing had actually happened. He could only say he just stayed for one night. It's nothing. Camila didn't believe it. She thought Lucas was treating her like a fool and continued to ask, did you take protective measures? He was going crazy. Lucas couldn't stand it anymore and loudly declared, I oppose premarital sex. Camila was stunned for a moment. Only then did she realize that what Lucas said should be true. Then she said, well, Leo is quite a gentleman. Let her think whatever she wants. He was tired. Even so, it was still awkward for Camila to sleep in Lucas' bed. The couple insisted on staying in a hotel outside. Lucas didn't stop them and accompanied them to book a room. But it was the National Day holiday, the peak tourist season. Whether online or offline, all the nearby hotels were fully booked. There were simply no rooms available. As a secretary, Lucas did have contacts with some hotels, but they were not close by and the prices were relatively high. Right now, he couldn't care less. Just as Lucas was about to call an acquaintance, the hotel manager, he received a call from Leo. It's about time to find a place to stay, Leo said. Lucas was a bit surprised. How did you know? Leo didn't say much and just told Lucas, I've already arranged it. It's just that I haven't got a car ready yet. You drive your parents there. Leo sent the address, which was a luxury hotel in the local area. I'll send someone to pick you up tomorrow morning. Don't worry about the journey. Leo said. It was getting late, so Lucas didn't decline and took his parents to the hotel. As Lucas expected, Leo had arranged a luxury suite. Fortunately, Lucas had prepared his parents in advance, telling them that it was good to have a room and they didn't need to feel burdened. Camila and Miles still thought it was too extravagant. Lucas said, it's okay. I do reception work with the president and have business dealings with these hotels. I can get a very low discount. Only then did the Yi family couple feel relieved. Anyway, there were many rooms in the suite, so Lucas simply stayed there with them to avoid running back and forth the next day. The next day, Lucas wanted to take his parents out for a stroll. Early in the morning, he received another call from Leo. The car will arrive soon and the supporting staff will also follow. Just enjoy the fun of traveling today. At that time, Lucas didn't quite understand what he meant. When their family went downstairs and just arrived at the hotel entrance, a Rolls-Royce slowly drove over and stopped in front of them. It's not necessary at all. The Yi family couple hadn't reacted yet when the driver wearing white gloves got out of the car, opened the door, and said respectfully, Ms. Yi, Mr. Kong, please get in the car. Facing his parents' questions, Lucas sighed and said, it's okay. Get in the car. It was arranged by Leo. The car took them to the famous scenic spots in City S. Along the way, Camila kept asking what was going on. Lucas could only say that it was rented and didn't cost much. When they arrived at the scenic spots, there were special personnel to receive them and lead them through the VIP channel. During the peak tourist season with a sea of people, they didn't need to queue up. Even if they had to, others would queue up for them. They could sit aside and rest, and there were always fruits and snacks. When it was time, they could enter directly. At each place, there was a different tour guide accompanying them, explaining the characteristics of the scenic spots and the history of City S. Each tour guide spoke clearly and was humorous, and the little stories they told were very engaging. Lucas had worked in City S for several years, but it was the first time he heard these historical stories and got to know the city again. During this crowded National Day holiday, this kind of travel experience was simply excellent. The Yi family couple had a great time, but they were always worried about the cost. This worry reached its peak when they arrived at the restaurant in the evening. After a day of playing, although the three of them weren't very tired, they were a bit fatigued. The Rolls-Royce took them to the highest viewing restaurant in City S. The environment was elegant and the atmosphere was gentle. Sitting by the glass window, they could enjoy the top-notch food while having a panoramic view of the beautiful scenery of the metropolis. As soon as Camila and Miles stepped into the restaurant, they glanced at each other. Lucas knew it was difficult to reserve a table here. He lowered his head and sent a message to Leo. Mr. Leo, this is a bit too much. Leo comforted him. Think of it as overtime pay. The Yi family couple lived a well-off life. They weren't intimidated by dining at a place of this level. However, Camila was still worried. Did Leo arrange all these? It's too expensive. We can't just eat and play for free like this. Lucas comforted his mother. It doesn't matter. Let him spend money. The company has been very busy lately and there's a lot of overtime pay. He has too much money to burn. Camila pondered for a moment and became even more worried. What exactly does your company do? How can it make money so quickly?